Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wiggins 77. Thank you for joining us. Everybody is welcome. Here at Wiggins 77, we discuss a multitude of topics with our primary focus on true crime. Ever wonder why so many criminal cases go unsolved or why innocent people get convicted for a crime they didn't commit? The case we are going to discuss today is a perfect example of what Sir Arthur Conan Doyle so eloquently wrote Sherlock Holmes said. When you have eliminated all which is impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. People involved in investigations forget the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid, and the devil is in the details. Now, today we are going to discuss the Scott Peterson case. Scott Peterson was convicted of murdering his pregnant wife Lacy in 2004. Does the actual evidence support the conviction, or did the jury get it wrong? Let's have a look at the evidence in the case. This is a photo of the Peterson home at the time Lacy was reported missing, then subsequently murdered. This is apparently the crime scene where Lacy was murdered. However, there was no evidence found in the home to support the police allegations. There was no blood, no sign of any sort of disturbance, no sign of a cleanup, leaving any trace evidence that a crime had been committed inside the house. To put this case into perspective, Lacy wasn't the first pregnant lady to go missing in the San Francisco Bay Area. This area was notorious for what today is called human trafficking, but back then was called baby sellers. These criminal organizations would prey on the disadvantaged in society, taking their babies, sell them off to the highest bidder. This was, or possibly still is, a multi-million-dollar business. The San Francisco Bay Area is also notorious for criminals to dump bodies of their victims into the San Francisco Bay. Now, this is a police-issued photograph of Evelyn Hernandez with her 5-year-old son Alex, which was issued to the public at the time. Evelyn with her son were reported missing by her boyfriend. Evelyn, at the time of her disappearance, was 9 months pregnant, about to give birth any day. This is the timeline of Evelyn's disappearance, which is eerily similar to the disappearance of Lacy. On April 30th, the boyfriend bought a bed for her 5-year-old son Alex and later accompanied Eva to a routine doctor's appointment. Eva and her boyfriend then returned to Eva's home, where the boyfriend assembled the new bed he purchased for Alex. After the boyfriend finished assembling the bed, he went and picked up her son Alex from school, then dropped him back home. And then the boyfriend went off to his home. The next day, on May 1st, 2002, Evelyn was seen dropping Alex at preschool in the Mission District. Then a short time later that day at an ATM where she made a deposit into her bank account. Evelyn then went to a Dress for Less store where she purchased the wallet that was later found. When Evelyn arrived home sometime after 6 p.m., she received her mail, which included 2 checks which were later found inside her wallet. Around 9 p.m. that night, she talked on the phone to one of her sisters about her upcoming baby shower. The sister told police that Evelyn was in good spirits when she spoke to her that night. That was the last time anyone heard from her, Evelyn, or Alex, and Alex did not show up at school the next day. Evelyn's due date was May 7, 2002, but there was still no sign of her or Alex, so her boyfriend reported her missing to the police. As he told police, he had tried to contact Evelyn over the past week and could not find her. The boyfriend told police the last time he spoke to Evelyn was on May 1st. The boyfriend also told police when he couldn't get in contact with Evelyn, he called twice to the hospital where Evelyn was scheduled to give birth, hoping she was there, but the hospital said she was not. Evelyn's family did not report her missing despite the fact they were giving her a baby shower and she was less than 2 weeks away from giving birth. On July 24th, 2002, which was approximately 2.5 months after Evelyn's disappearance, a citizen walking in the Embarcadero, and I apologize if I didn't say that properly, area near the Bay Bridge came upon a very gruesome scene: a human torso and a pair of legs. The torso was clad in a maternity blouse. In September, it was confirmed via DNA that these partial remains were those of Evelyn Hernandez. At the time Evelyn's autopsy, the coroner was unable to definitively determine if Evelyn gave birth. However, the coroner did note that the birth canal was wider than normal, and it was possible that Evelyn gave birth prior to her being put in the San Francisco Bay. To this day, to my knowledge, neither 5-year-old Alex or Evelyn's baby have ever been found. The investigators in this case, they were very thorough in their investigation. They ruled out the boyfriend as having anything to do with the disappearance or death of Evelyn. You're most wondering why I've brought this up, and this is why. There are quite a few similarities between these two cases. Both involved young, pregnant Hispanic women. Yes, Lacy was half Hispanic, who went missing just a few months apart from cities that are approximately 80, 90 miles away from each other. Lacy was also 8 months pregnant at the time of her disappearance, while Evelyn was 9 months pregnant and about to give birth at the time of her disappearance. Lacy's autopsy report showed, and I apologize for this gruesome bit here, her head, parts of her limbs such as hands, feet, portion of one leg, and arms were missing, which is similar to the condition of Evelyn's body at the time of autopsy. Showed her arms, hands, feet, and head were missing as well. Although it's not clear in either victim's case if that was done by their killer or due to decomposition from bodies being in the water. Both women's remains were found in the San Francisco Bay, and just to give you an idea, the labeled colored dots are the general area all three sets of remains were found. These are some of the reasons that the police detectives in the Evelyn Hernandez case, when hearing about the disappearance of Lacy, contacted the Modesto police. The Modesto police, which were the police department in charge of Lacy Peterson case, they refused to discuss Lacy's case and told the Hernandez detectives the husband did it, Scott Peterson. The detectives in the Evelyn Hernandez case had thoroughly investigated that case, but due to lack of public interest, because Evelyn was, and this is very, very sad that this happens, but Evelyn Hernandez, she was a poor person. She worked in a hotel. She lived in a, poor neighborhood, and it's sad. And due to that lack of public interest and due to lack of resources, the detectives had to move on to other cases. But the detectives in the Evelyn Hernandez case were an excellent group of detectives that did an amazing job with the time and resources they had. Once the Evelyn Hernandez case detectives, they reached out to the Modesto Police Department again when Lacy's remains were found. With the autopsy report of Lacy's remains almost mirrored the autopsy results of Evelyn. Like the similarities in the two cases, the Hernandez detectives thought the same people had kidnapped and murdered both women. The Modesto police once again told the Hernandez detectives to shove off, is what they actually told them with their theory. Now, before we begin to look at the evidence in the Scott Peterson case, let's dispense with the gold digger, and here she is. That way, there'll be no need for further discussion in regards to this, as she has absolutely nothing to do with the case in regards to actual evidence. Okay, she was the greatest gift to the Modesto police, as the distraction this caused diverted everyone's, including Scott's legal team. that represented him, attention away from the fact that the police had no actual evidence that supported the guilt of Scott Peterson. What the Modesto police had were porky telling police, and that was proven in court, the gold digging stalker, and a defense team that didn't take the time or effort to actually look at the supposed evidence in the case. That's it. And I'm not going to apologize for calling this woman a gold digging stalker because that is exactly who she is. First off, Scott did not pursue this gold digger. It was the gold digger that pursued Scott right from the beginning. And that is according to the gold digger and Scott's own statements, as well as phone records, confirm that to be fact. In the example of this prior to Lacy going missing, the gold digger called Scott 16 times in one day with no return calls from Scott. Now, this was in the age prior to social media and that anything goes. So, this behavior of calling someone 16 times in one day back in 2002 was considered stalking behavior. And this wasn't the only time the gold digger did this. She was constant with this behavior, and the majority of the time, according to phone records, Scott did not respond. The gold digger did this with multiple men she dated prior to Scott, so he wasn't the only one she did this with. Scott was a good looking, charming young man, but he didn't pursue women. He was very quiet, quiet type of guy. They pursued him. Even Lacy was the one that pursued Scott, not the other way around. To the gold digger, who was a single mother that lived in a meager apartment with a close to minimum wage job, Scott was an excellent catch, and she wasn't about to let that opportunity pass her by. Scott had stopped seeing the gold digger on December 14th, as like some young men, he was only seeing the gold digger for sex, as that wasn't available at home at the time, and the gold digger was at the ready. So, young men would have difficulty turning that down. On December 14th, Scott had decided to move on, leaving the gold digger behind. When the Modesto police approached the gold digger in an attempt to entrap Scott, the gold digger jumped, of course, at this opportunity to look at the fame and fortune that would bring. And that is exactly what happened. The gold digger, along with the assistance of her ambulance chasing lawyer, cashed in, gained fame, and a very large fortune. Now let's look at the legal aspect of the gold digger. First up, the judge in this case should have denied the testimony and everything that went with her from the very start, and why Scott's defense team did not take this issue all the way to the Supreme Court boggles the mind. The prejudicial nature of the gold digger's testimony far outweighed the probable sorry folks, probable value. No question about it. In other words, what she had to offer for days and days on the stand wasn't evidence. It was like reading the National Enquirer. And here's the precedent case. In the David Camp case, his conviction was reversed in 2004 based on the prosecution had unfairly inflamed the jury with testimony of David Camp's extramarital affairs. This occurred in this trial as well. The gold digger was on the stand in the Scott Peterson case for several days. They played like dozens of taped phone calls in court with no evidentiary value other than to inflame the jury against Scott. It was the gold digger that initiated the majority of calls in an attempt to entrap Scott, and this was proven by phone records, who had no idea that the gold digger was doing this. Now, Scott maintained his innocence throughout these taped phone calls, explained in many calls to the gold digger how he missed his wife and there was no future for the gold digger with him as he expected Lacy to return. Scott did not confess to her, quite the opposite. What evidence did the gold digger have to testify to that Scott had slept with her? And the last time that occurred was December 14th. Okay, this might surprise you that between 10 to 20% of young men with a partner in the late stages of pregnancy have affairs. and they all say the same thing. It is for sex only. Scott had sexual encounters before, and Lacy was well aware of his behavior, as she herself had caught him in bed with another woman. Did she tell her mother? No, she did not. I certainly wish if Scott Peterson is ever granted a new trial, his attorneys will cite the precedent law, the David Camp case, to prevent the gold digger from testifying and focus on the actual evidence or lack thereof in this case. Please, please keep these thoughts in mind as I look forward to presenting our next episode, where we will discuss some of the tangible evidence in the case. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to all your feedback. Please leave your feedback in the comments section, or you're welcome to email me your feedback at ybdavidson@outlook.com. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's free. Until next time, always remember every day is a gift.